Beautiful. So today we're going to cover the basics. Is everything you need to know and master to get the maximum variety out of your meal plan, as well as long-term success. Right before I go into this PowerPoint, typically this education piece is happening at their 1 month mark or earlier if they've mastered their meal plan earlier. But typically the 1 month mark, I have in half an hour now. I do their measurements again, and I have a little bit of time to do some education. So, the first thing I want to talk about, what is a calorie? And a calorie is just a measurement of energy. And calories is how much energy is used to increase mercury 1 degree Celsius. Is a measurement in a lab. The reality is that our body's not a laboratory, so calories are not as relevant as we think. What's more important is the macronutrients that make up the calories. The way I like to look at it is your calories is here, and then they break down to macro, which are large units. And there's primarily three macronutrients. Alcohol is the fourth one, but we never program alcohol in someone's diet. So we focus on these three macronutrients. The first one I'm going to talk about is protein. We're going to dial big time into protein, but just so we know what protein does, it repairs our cells. So you see people sometimes who have very low protein diets, or they don't eat meat or different things like that, and you'll see like their eyes are sunk in, their nails go brittle, their hair will thin out. And the reason why is because protein repairs cells. It doesn't do what the marketing on muscle magazines tell you and give you big muscles. They just help repair cells. So where you're going to get your protein from is things like your meat, your pork, bacon, lamb, your eggs, chicken, turkey, fish. All your fish are protein. There's something called complete versus incomplete proteins, and we'll talk about that when we dive into proteins. But also protein shakes, dairy. You will notice that dairy is going to show up in protein, carbs, and fat. Dairy is a complete protein. And under there you have milk, creams, cheeses, yogurts, cottage cheese, whey protein powder. Soy is a protein as well. But honestly, for a lot of our clients, we don't recommend soy. And the reason why is because it can mimic estrogen in the body and give us some false positives, make it challenging to lose fat and things like that. Now, there's a whole agenda that's anti-soy, and that's not the track we're going to go down. But for the most part, we're not going to do a soy protein supplement. Even for our vegans and vegetarians, what we do is a pea protein or another protein source that maybe has like different incompletes to make it complete. Like Sun Warrior is a great example of that for our vegans, but not a soy-based protein powder. Tofu, tempeh, soy milk, all those are proteins. So carbs have gotten a bad rap too in the marketplace. We're finally at a point where every macronutrient gets a bad rap. So protein, you watch What the Health, and they're like, protein's bad. Now carbs for the years, people say, oh, I can't eat carbs. Carbs, what they do is they're the quickest form of energy for your body. They feed your brain and your muscles. So that's how your body gets energy really fast, through carbohydrates. So where are you going to get those from? Grains, your breakfast cereals, pastas, bread, rice, oatmeal, sugars, all your beans. A lot of people think your beans or your legumes are proteins, but they're really a carbohydrate. And all your starchy vegetables, potatoes, yams, sweet potatoes, your fruit and vegetables. A lot of people don't know fruit and vegetables are carbs. So like, I don't eat any carbs. I'm like, I just do this vegetable smoothie. I'm like, vegetables are carbs. Yeah, what do you put in? I put apples. Well, apples are carbs too. So all your fruit and vegetables, dairy again. So milk, for an example, lactose is the milk sugar. So milk is typically has a large percentage of carbohydrates in your milk, as well. And the last macronutrient is fat. So what does fat do besides taste good? What fat does is it helps your body metabolize vitamin D. It also helps your body create what we call our steroids hormones. So our glucocorticoids, or our testosterone, our estrogen, estradiol, progesterone, that's all made through fat. Fat also lubricates your cells, which allows for nutrient absorption. So a lot of times people don't get the nutrients they need out of their food very well. And the reason why is because their cells are like rigid. So if they up their omega-3 intake, it can really help with absorbing the fats from their food. It also helps with brain health and skin health. So there's a lot of benefits to fat, providing that we're eating healthy choices of fat. And we know fat, people used to think if you don't eat fat, you don't get fat, which is not true. So we're going to get our fats from is things like avocados and nuts and almonds and pecans, all your seeds. So if it's a nut or oil or a seed, it's a fat. Easy way to look at it. Your butter, flaxseed. And these are all what we like to think of as healthier forms of fat versus things like margarine as a fat, as well as the lard that you have on your animals. Is a fat, that the gristle, all that's fat, but maybe not the healthiest forms. So, things we need to be successful, of course, by now you should have known how to use and master things like a food scale, measuring spoons, measuring cups, all those are needed. And the 5 problems we see is, one is that the FDA allows for a 20% error on nutrition labels. What that means, and they also do 5 different techniques. So 5 different companies can measure something 5 different ways, and each of them allowed a 20% error. Wow. So one of the things we recommend is, though food variety and trying different brands of foods are really important to enjoy a healthy lifestyle, initially, whatever brand you pick, try to stick with that brand. Because let's say if it's a low-carb wrap, there's a company called Flat Out, and they make these awesome wraps. Or Mission makes a low-carb, smart, wrap. It doesn't really matter for us which one you pick. But Mission may measure their wrap one way to come up with this calories and 20% error, and Flat Out measures another way. So at one point, you could be in a deficit, and the other point, you could be in a surplus, depending on which brand. Right. But if you pick one brand, you can just rock out that whole brand in there, which is really important. What this means for us is that a 1,500 calorie diet could be 1,300 or 1,800. It could be that far of a swing when we're talking about 20%, which can make a big deal when you look at the errors and the differences. The other thing is understand that for the food that we eat, we don't absorb everything we eat. So there's something called a thermic effect of food, and we'll talk about that when we eat. We talk about metabolism, but our carbs and our fats, 15% of those just get burned up in eating it. For our proteins, between 25 to 35% of that gets burned up in the digestive process. And then some of our food gets used as waste. Some of it uses fuel, so everything is not absorbed that we actually consume. How we prepare our foods can change the caloric load. So a couple of rules that we have, and we should have talked about it by now, is don't cook with oils, because in that prep, you've now changed the caloric load of what dinner looks like. Right. And I see clients all the time, they're posting stuff, and I'm like, yay! And I'm like, what's that like clear stuff at the bottom of the pan? It was the oil that they cooked in. Right. Also, even how we prepare food, if we overcook our food, we lose the nutrient density of that food. So some people like the vegetables, for example, like soggy, versus like crunchy. Well, the crunchier it is, the more nutrients it has in it, than the soggy it is, So it's important just to understand that, individuals absorb food differently based on their gut bacteria. That's the question we don't have on the test, but on the thingy. But we always ask, how's your GI health? And the reason why we ask that is because if we know that you have poor GI health, it's going to affect your energy. It's going to affect everything. You have to be able to absorb food in your gut. I just recently learned from Jim that our Slimetry, I happen to have it on my desk, it has a brown algae in it that helps clear out your GI system, which helps also with the absorption of the ECGC that's in it. Oh, okay. Which is really cool. Also helps with cleansing out your liver and all that, which is awesome. And lastly, people are no good at eyeballing portions. I've been doing meal prep and planning, measuring, weighing for 10 years now. You can use your timelines on it. And I still weigh and measure everything. You have to. If I'm hungry, it looks a little different. I'm like, that's 4 ounces. Right. That's it. That's all. So don't trust your eyeballs. Still weigh and measure. Cool. Any questions? Mm-hmm. Cool. Share.